So you need to make sure that the data that you're actually backing up is being backed up and then that it can be restored. This talks about media rotation. If you're using jump drives, I would suggest that you have 5 jump drives. You can buy the little 2 gig drives now for $10, and all of y'all's stuff will fit on a 2 gig drive. I would suggest 5 of those. Plug one in on Monday, plug one in on Tuesday, plug one in on Wednesday. Go all the way through the week. Take the others off site. You only need one on site at a time. Then at the end of the week, when you start back over on Monday, use Mondays again. Because you've got 4 more shots. If something's wrong with that data, you've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And what you want to do is if all of your data happen to be bad on Friday, then you can back up from Thursday, and if it's good, then you only have 1 day's worth of data that you have to manually input. So that's why we try. If we use tapes, we use 2 rotations. If you're using a tape, or if you're using a disk, or if you're using zip drives, we suggest that you have 5 of each, and we color them blue or red. And then you take the red set off site, you use the blue set on site, you back up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you take that set off, bring the other one back, and use it the next week. If you have a place that you can store the stuff, off site, and I didn't know this until the other day, you can't store stuff off site if it's within 2 blocks of your office. That's not considered off site. We had a county that called and needed an off-site backup because they were keeping it at the bank across the street in a safety deposit box, and the auditor said that is not considered off-site because of a natural disaster. If a tornado comes through and tears up the courthouse, it's probably going to get the bank. I think they want 6 blocks minimum. But you need a place that you can store it off-site in case something does happen. Keep your tape separate so that if you've got a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, make sure you keep those sets separated so that you're always using the same set together. So store it in a secure location away from direct sunlight. Sunlight and heat will actually affect magnetic media. Heat will really affect it. We had trouble with a server at one of the counties one time, and we couldn't figure it out remotely, and we finally went down there. And it was right up against the wall in a little bitty room with a heat vent right on top of it. And it was like 90 degrees in there. And computers do not like that. The processors heat up and it starts just shutting itself off. They didn't lose any data, but it sure caused them a lot of problems for weeks until we moved that thing, until we finally figured out what it was. But it could have actually damaged those drives. Develop a plan to replace equipment before there's an emergency. Now, this is one thing, coming from a technology company, it sounds like a sales pitch, okay? But it's not. Computers wear out. This is what the industry recommends. This is not Kelpro. This is what the industry says. If you have a server, 4 to 5 years, you need to be ready to replace that machine. Now, what you do is you budget for it, but you may not have to replace it. We had a server down in Camp County, Texas, that ran for 10 years without ever being rebooted because the company that put it in went out of business a week after they put it in, and no one had the administrator's password, and if the computer ever went down, we couldn't bring it back up. And so they saved up until they got enough money for another server. We copied everything over to the new server, and then we took that one down. 10 years. I would not recommend that, but that's what that one lasted. Desktops, 3 to 5 years. You may have a computer that's 8 years old and still just chugging right along. But the way the technology advances and the way the components break down, once you get past that 5-year mark, you're losing efficiency if nothing else. Computer prices are coming down. Technology is going up. The speed of those things is tremendous now. And when you replace a computer at 5 years, you do not have to replace everything in that system. Your monitor may still be good. And you can buy the base computer without the monitor. You may want the nicer monitor because now you can get a 22-inch monitor for what you were paying for a 15. And when you get my age, those things are nice. Printers 3 to 8, and that depends on the printer. That depends on the amount of time that you're using it. If you've got an inkjet HP printer, I'd be pushing it at 3 years. But if you've got a Savin or an HP laser, 8 years, not hard on those. Even if you do quite a bit of printing, as long as you keep them maintained. Scanners, anybody using scanners in here? It says 2 to 6 years depending on the scanner. If it's a good quality, a Canon, a Fujitsu, not an off-the-shelf model, if it's a commercial scanner, I would look closer to 10 years on those. We've had a lot of scanners that have made it way past the 6-year mark. The problem is technology, again, has leapfrogged up, and the computers don't support the scanners anymore. Even though the scanners are still good, they're dog slow. We had one at Bryan County, and it would and it was still working. And that's all that they knew, and so they loved it because they were scanning their images in. And I set one of the new Fujitsus up, and I said, how would you guys like to have one of these? And at that time, I think they were like $700. And she goes, oh, I can't afford that. And I plugged it in, and I stuck a piece of paper in it. It goes, Soom! She said, I want 3 of them. Technology has increased. Battery backups. How many of you guys have battery backups on your computer? Good. If you don't, let's go back to the other presentation. You're going to have problems, okay? Battery backups. Now, one thing that you do not want to do on a battery backup is do not plug your laser printer into a battery backup. Do not plug your copy machine into a battery backup. It will kill it. They're not designed for that. You can plug an inkjet in because they don't have the heaters in there. You can plug your computer. You can plug your monitor. You can plug your speakers. You can plug, if you've got a DSL modem, I would suggest plugging that in too. Put everything in a power strip, plug it in. For one thing, if you're on the internet and your power just flashes a little bit and you don't have your DSL on there, then you're going to lose your internet connection. It's going to lock you up on the browser, and then you're going to have to go out and reboot. But guys, you can budget for this stuff. If you plan on it ahead, you can say, okay, I got to go to the commissioners. It's 5 years old for my desktop. I need to budget one for next year. Questions?
My battery backup, every day at 12:18,
Uh-huh.
starts making a noise.
Yep.
A chirping.
Mm-hmm.
And
I can tell you what that is. There is something on the circuit that it's plugged into that is drawing extra power at that particular period of time.
what else did you say besides laser printer?
A copy machine.
Copy machine.
Copy machine has a huge thermal fuser in it.
I'm going to check that.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be plugged into the battery. If it's just plugged into that circuit that the battery's on, it's not going to cause you any problems on the computer, but it's going to draw current off of that electrical circuit. And so instead of getting 120 volts to your battery, it's going to get probably 108 volts to your battery, and that's going to set that thing into alarm. Because there's a setting on that thing where you can make it more or less sensitive. And we try to keep those at about 110 volts, and if it drops below 110 volts, it goes into alarm.
Well, if you're not working on the computer whenever it happens, it'll shut the computer off. If you're doing any work, like entering anything, the computer will stay on.
Wow. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because normally, if you were working on it, you would actually be pulling a little bit more current. The monitor would be on. When you're not working on it and it goes off, is it in sleep mode? I mean, is it blanked out
Yeah, it's blacked out.
and then it goes off?
It's totally turned off.
Okay, yeah. But you've got something on that circuit that at that particular time is kicking in. Could be a freezer in the sheriff's office. I don't know.
I was gonna say that load doesn't even have to be in your office.
Right.
I remember one instance where it was a copy machine in an adjoining office that was on the same circuit. Whenever the office next door used their copier, the batteries in this office beeped.
So, okay. What to do then? I mean,
That's going to take a local electrician. What they're going to have to do is they're going to have to put a meter on that circuit, and they can trace the circuit that your battery's plugged into back to the panel, put a meter on it, and see what the current draw is on it.
one time I thought it had something to do with the heater.
It could very well. It could be a heater. It could be an air conditioner. Anything that's going to draw. And since it's only doing it at a specific time, it's something that's probably set to go off at a certain time.
The good news is the battery backup is doing what it's intended to do. It's giving
But if the battery is not holding, how many of you know how to test a battery? Good. You're going to learn something. If you look at the front of the battery, there's a switch that says power. Okay? Right above it, it says test. If you just hold that button in for a second, it'll blink. And when it blinks, take your hand off of it, and the green light will blink about 4 times, and then it will go amber. And it will be on battery power, and then it will go back to green and be solid. I would suggest doing that test, because if you push that thing in and your computer dies, your battery is bad. Now, it will still, if the battery was brand new, it would still go into alarm if the voltage going into the thing dropped below the minimum voltage.
Well, my battery backup is probably 5 years old.
Yeah, you're probably due for another one. And the good news is they're cheaper than they were when you bought it 5 years ago, and you can actually get a larger one for less money now. Questions? Anything else? Guys, we appreciate you coming. This was a great crowd. Make sure you get your sheets filled out. 5 is the best. 1 is not so good. Just leave them on your table. And we'll probably see you guys again in the fall.